Hey guys, Stealth17 here. Today we're going to be looking at how to build a tier 2 vehicle in Robocraft. It's a question you see very often, especially amongst beginners, and when I started the game I was also wondering how do I get from tier 1 to tier 2. Now I come from a background of World of Tanks, so getting from tier 1 to tier 2 is basically researching a new vehicle, and Robocraft is taking a bit of a different approach to that. If you look in the bottom left corner you see tier 1. This is highlighted at the moment by a blue line. What we want to get to tier 2 is just build blocks, because every block has a p-flops value and a robot ranking. The CPU load, there it says 1 p-flop, which means that you get 1 p-flop load for every block you use, and this varies per block. A basic building block is usually 1 or 2 flops, armor gets up to higher, and if I look at weapons, even the tier 1, these guys are 10 p-flops a piece. So weapons and other special items usually really rack up the p-flops limit. But what you want to be looking at is the robot ranking, because the higher your ranking, the higher your tier. So I'm going to start building a basic vehicle, and you can start seeing the tier limit or the tier counter on the bottom left side go up as I build it. Now, as you see, these building blocks don't really add that much yet. It's just the foundation of my robot, and you don't really want these to really stack up the tier limit, because that way you would have a vehicle which would be pretty big without any armament while being tier 2. Now if I add wheels, you can see that it really starts to rack up the tier limit. This goes a lot faster than going by building blocks. Now adding a weapon will really increase the tier limit. See, if I build a top mount SMG T1, it doesn't really add that much because it's a very low tier weapon. On the other hand, if I go for the top mount SMG T3, this really has an impact on the tier level. Keep in mind that you cannot just keep building, because at some point you will hit tier 2, and you also want to have a pilot seat on it, for example, and possibly an enemy radar. These things also add to your weight limit and your tier limit, so make sure that you put these things on first. So I did it in the wrong order in this video. Also make sure that before you get to tier 2, even if you want to, you get a lot of cash, because that way you can unlock stuff, you can get more parts, and especially more powerful parts. See, the moment you hit tier 2 and you have a very light vehicle, let's say I have a couple more blocks to add up to a higher level. By the way, don't build this. This is just a car to show you how to get the tier limit. I'm not sure this is going to perform very well. Okay, mount 2 top SMGs on it. Almost at the next tier. Front mount SMGs. Still not there. Throw on some armor. Almost at tier 2 now. And now we're at tier 2. Now see, the car looks like absolutely nothing you'd want to be driving in a real match. And this is the problem if you go to tier 2, because now you are going to be fighting in tier 2 battles, which also gives you opponents which are already way higher in the tier 2 limit. See, they could be, say, at the level we are at tier 1, which is a tier 2 maxed out vehicle. That means that they have a lot more firepower, a lot more protection, and a lot more chance of winning than you do. So make sure that before you get to tier 2, you first get as much of the tech tree unlocked as you can. So spend a while in tier 1 and get those tech points up to unlock all the parts you can with T1 points. Then make sure you have enough credits to buy stuff from the cube depot. and then start building your tier 2 robot. Because if you do it in a different order, you're probably going to have a bad time because you're not going to be really competitive with the other vehicles. Again, don't build this vehicle, this is just to show you how to get the tier limit up. It's not that hard, but one thing you have to keep in mind is that it's also limited by the P-flops, which is on the top left side of the screen. And this limit increases as you play the game and get a higher player level. Each player level adds a couple P-flops to use extra. So just play the game and your P-flops level will increase, allowing you to build bigger vehicles. Getting to tier 3, 4, 5, etc. also works the same, so just add more blocks, build a bigger robot, and make sure that you have it maxed out before you hit the next level. One last remark, I have in my other vehicle a lot of rail cannons. These things really cost a lot of P-flops to use. And they really increase your tier limit. Have a look at the tier limit on the bottom left side, and now add one railgun. Oh sorry, may only have one type of gun on my robot. With one railgun, I immediately get up to tier 2, and even way into tier 2. Take it off, put it back on. The same deal is with the plasma weapons. See, this one has a robot ranking of 297, and a plasma launcher has a robot ranking which is even higher, which means that plasma weapons really rack up the tier. So make sure that you are very selective in the type of weapons you bring. You can only bring one at a time, but make sure that you bring weapons which are appropriate for the tier, and keep in mind that you can only have 6 weapons firing at the same time. So you could put 15 to 50 front mount SMGs on it, but it wouldn't really work because you'd have 6 guns firing and about 44 doing nothing. They're just being redundant until you have the necessary, or until you have some guns blown off to actually use the other guns. So be very selective, build a good vehicle, always test it out in practice mode, which you can find here, and make sure that your robot doesn't flip over and that you can actually compete with other vehicles. Okay, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please like the video, and if you have any questions, make sure to put them in the comments. Love to hear from you. Cheers, Stealth.